Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Live with Littledata. I'm here today, back at home after a week in the sun of Valencia, and chatting here to Cormac Casey from Proper. Welcome, Cormac.
Thanks very much for having me. You didn't tell me you're on holidays.
No, it wasn't a holiday actually. It was an agency summit. Out meeting quite a lot of agency partners. Actually, I met a lot of Irish people that have seemed to have emigrated to Spain. I guess it's not quite easy to understand why.
Yeah. I know a lot of agency staff are in kind of Valencia and Madrid at the minute, which is
but one in Malaga as well. So yeah, there's definitely a common pattern. I guess we can all run our businesses from pretty much anywhere now, so why not?
Yeah, true.
Anyway, so yeah, definitely today we want to chat a bit more about optimizing flows using personalization. I know you're a real expert with Klaviyo, and obviously we work a lot with that as well. But perhaps, tell us a bit more about Proper to start with.
Yeah, perfect. So we're a retention marketing agency for e-com brands, which is the boring way of saying we help brands squeeze more profit out of their current database as opposed to just acquiring new customers. We're based in Galway, so west coast of Ireland, and we're quite a small team by design. So was never really a big fan of the kind of big agency model. So we've tried to keep it as a lean, mean, and kind of highly skilled team. And as a result, we end up working with quite a small amount of clients at any one time as well, just to allow us to kind of get shoulder to shoulder with each client, to give them the kind of the kind of boots on the ground experience that most of our type of work requires. So we've been running for kind of 5 years now. I've been in e-com since I was 15. Got into e-com very accidentally, but that's pretty much us.
Thank you. So I think obviously, two topics really. One is you're obviously doing some interesting stuff with personalization and making use of some of the actual inbuilt Klaviyo pop-up logic. And obviously the second thing which we'll come on to is Black Friday, and we're all sort of in that preparation phase. So how that's relevant to some of those personalization. But talk us first of all about what is the opportunity for brands to do smart personalization based off captured fields, because I think there's a lot of cynicism about one of those buzzwords which is often used and often not done well. How can we do personalization well?
Yeah, smart personalization is a good way of putting it. I think we were discussing this before, but once people get a bug, it's kind of like golf. Once you get a bug for golf, you go all in. Same with the personalization, segmentation. People get very enthusiastic about it and see the opportunity. And what we end up seeing when we audit potential clients, a lot of them have really over-engineered their, especially their core flows. So browse abandonment, cart, checkout, those kind of ones. A lot of the time people over-engineer them to the point that they've kind of maybe waste resources on the wrong things just for the sake of personalizing. There'd be plenty of times we'd be auditing accounts where there could be flows that are a massive tree of logic and it looks really cool and complicated, which isn't necessarily the wrong thing. But when you dig in deeper, there's oftentimes we'd be looking at the last 90 days performance of those flows, and there could be dozens of emails that have less than 10 recipients, for example. So it truly becomes a waste of time. So smart personalization is a good way of saying it and kind of thinking about what you want to split by or what you want to target by before you actually go about doing it. So I'll get onto your thing about the pop-ups in a second, because it is an interesting one. But blanket canvas, the things people should be splitting by, especially in their bottom of funnel flows, are purchasers versus non-purchasers. That's a massive one. And then the other one, which people kind of forget about sometimes, is non-offer offers, I call them. So if the customer is applicable for some sort of discount or offer that they would have get anyways. So for example, they hit the free shipping threshold, let them know. You're not giving away anything extra. They would have gotten it anyways if they purchased. Or a lot of brands do free gift with purchase over a certain value. If they fall into those categories, tell them they want those categories. It's like giving them an offer, but you're not actually throwing away any extra margin. They would have gotten it automatically.
So you split it based on basket value, and
yeah, pretty much
show which ones would say tell people who are going to get that offer that are going to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people would replace that with a discount very early in the journey, like some sort of blanket discount, like cart 20 or something like that. You don't really need to. Like there's an offer already sitting there in their account that you don't have to sacrifice margin just for the sake of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an excellent point, because what a lot of the experts I've interviewed can agree on is that kind of blanket discounts are generally eroding margins for no good reason. But it's interesting that obviously to do that well, you do need to have the value of the whole cart, which is something that Littledata's integration adds into that add to cart event. It's otherwise a little hard to do unless you're in the checkout.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, add to cart. Yeah, we've workaround for add to cart event that really doesn't work on a lot of integrations. But interesting that I didn't know that you had a combined.
Yeah, because one of the things we did differently, because the inbuilt sort of, or the standard sort of add to cart event you get in Klaviyo only is actually tracking the last items added to cart, so it knows the product price but not the cart value. What we do differently is basically doing what they do for the checkout, which is to have all of the line items, and then obviously the total value is part of that.
I should have done my research. I didn't know that.
There you go.
We must chat after this. Yeah, it is a massive gap in how the metrics pass across traditionally with Shopify. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you could use all those exact same splits with add to cart then as well, which definitely would make a difference. On the other thing you were saying though, so a lot of the time we would use, again, an overused term, zero-party data, but we'd use zero-party data we get from the customer in the initial journey as part of the personalization in the flows. So, for example, in say the primary pop-up, or your primary way of acquiring new people into your database, we would have questions in there people could answer, and it depends how you ask them and how you structure the pop-up as well. And to be fairly honest, Klaviyo's pop-up system is fairly limited, but there's still a lot you could do with it. So, I mean, we can go through examples here. The example we were talking about earlier was a horse supplement company that we work with, which is very random, but people love spending money on their horses, probably a lot more than they do on themselves. But in their primary pop-up, we would ask questions like they had the luxury of having a small SKU count. So what's your horse's biggest pain point at the minute? And it could be things like, we're not pointing them towards products, but we ask them more on a
problem. What's
problem basis, yeah. So like joint issues or aging or skin issues, whatever. I don't want to get to horse terminology now, but we could ask questions like that. And then you'd also, one that was kind of a secret game changer for them was, how many horses do they have? So if they have over a certain threshold, we'd store their data differently and they would fall into a different segment for us. And then in the way we'd use that in the bottom of funnel flows, so again, browse, checkout, cart, it allows us to show the customer stuff that's more relevant to them, essentially. So for example, if someone says they have 5 or more horses, we don't show them the kind of entry-level packs that last for one horse for 30 days. We show them the bulk buy options.
Yeah,
that made a huge difference to AOV for the site. That was one of the biggest growth triggers that they had in the entire business, probably from the previous 2 years. And
you're saying the other obvious one is asking, horse's name. I mean, I think that's true for lots of pet food brands. They find that very useful.
Yeah, it's a funny one. So for them, for example, we would ask what type of horse they are, what the horse's name is. If they have one horse, it gets complicated. If they have multiple, same for any pet brand, as you said. Yeah. So it allows you to do things. Say we look at like a traditional abandoned cart or abandoned checkout. The subject line could be, forgotten something, Cormac, and it's just really boring and it's the same thing everyone else says. When you have the horse's name and the horse's pain point, or some sort of zero-party data about the horse,
yeah.
Again, it's such a random example. You can get really personalized. So, for example, if we know they have joint pains, we know their name is Seamus. The horse's name is Seamus, and well, that's enough, really. The subject line could be, "Do Seamus's joints need some love?" Question mark. All of a sudden, people are like, yes, they do. It's funny. We were talking about this before, that the very rudimentary level of personalization, people just say, "Hey, first name" in the subject line or in the email. That's kind of, people's bullshit meters are very, very sensitive, and they pick up the kind of unauthenticity of that. But yeah, you can get a lot more personal. So that's one example. Another example we were speaking about earlier is how you can shift the content based on zero-party data inside the emails. So as opposed to over-engineering this big tree of a flow with loads of different splits, it could be things like the hero images and the flows could be dynamic based on what they say. So we spoke about a footwear brand there earlier who sell to men and women. So if we find out the person is looking for men's footwear in the initial journey, so it could be in the pop-up, or it could be that they are adding men's footwear to their cart. Either way, we can store that information as a profile property within Klaviyo. Then if they go to any of the bottom of funnel automations, the hero image in that could take in that information, say, okay, this person's interested in men's footwear, show the men's lifestyle image as the hero, as opposed to showing, a woman in high heels. Completely irrelevant.
Well, talking to one of our other partners a few months ago, Grid and Pixel, that do image personalization for Klaviyo emails. That image personalization is one of the more effective ways you can just convey the fact that email's for you, because it's sort of subliminal almost, but the immediately email just feels like, oh yeah, that's somewhere probably relevant for me.
Yeah, exactly. You don't realize, and that's kind of the perfect thing, whereas you do realize if it's not for you. So like a male kind of electrician could be looking for safety boots, and if he gets an email with high heels in them, it's immediately like, this is weird. Whereas if he gets an image with safety boots in it or something similar, he doesn't even think about it. It's like, okay, I need to. One of our competitors, Flowium, has a phrase that I keep repeating, and it's a really good phrase: is captivate and convert. So, and that's a visual thing. So if you can captivate someone by whatever is above the fold, it makes a huge difference.
Exactly. You've got to captivate first. Now, you're saying something quite interesting as well about because obviously, as you said, the Klaviyo flows flow builder somewhat limited, but you can do this sort of multi-stage question capture where obviously you get the email first, and then after they've done that, you can follow up. And you're saying actually when you've done tests, the drop off when you ask more questions beyond the first one is not half as much as you think.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We kind of call it a micro commitment. So if someone is, whatever the offer is, so let's go vanilla for a second. If the offer on the pop-up is, fancy 10% off, enter your first name in your email. And again, we were using examples there of the UX of Typeform really does this well, where on that first page, it says, question 1 of 5 or question 1 of 3. It takes approximately 30 seconds, something like that. So you're the end is in sight, and you kind of have information of, okay, I need to go through this now. But because you've committed to wanting the pop-up or wanting the discount in the first stage of the pop-up, the churn in between stage 1, say in stage 2, 3, 4, if you have that many steps in your pop-up, is quite low. Like for a lot of our brands, you might see a drop off of less than 7%, we'll say. So the pharmacy we were talking about earlier, they'd have a 93% completion rate. The amount of people that start the form and finish it. And as they're saying, that they ask quite sensitive information because they're a pharmacy.
Exactly. So
people are quite comfortable.
Buy-in, they've given you the email, which is arguably the most sensitive bit. So once they've done that, they're sort of like the questions are,
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of micro commitment. They've decided they want it, so they'll finish the form. In the most cases, and worst case scenario, they don't finish the form and they drop off. But because you've asked for the email first, you've got them already. So you can retarget them. So there's literally no risk in adding extra steps to those forms and asking the right questions. Again, on the same tune as people over-engineering pop-ups, people often ask the wrong questions in those scenarios as well. So perfect example is a clothes shop we work with, or fashion brand, I suppose. And I can't remember how they phrased it originally, but they're asking, like, are you male, female, or other, as an example. And what happened was people would fill in, female people would fill in female. They then retarget those people with dresses and female products. But it turned out that the majority of their male purchases were by women. This is an Irish brand where Irish men can't dress themselves.
No, that's well known. Women buy men's clothing for them, absolutely.
Exactly.
So it's a classic example of it where you say you ask them one question, who are you buying for is the right question, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's completely different, and it goes back to another example. Like this is one that's universal to any brand, and I kind of recommend people should test this out. Is when are you looking to purchase? As a question in there, if you're looking to start out quite basic and broad, that is one question that works for regardless of what industry you're in. Because if, like, say you have 3 options, one could be today, in the next few days, or I'm just browsing. If someone clicks I'm just browsing or in the next few days, you can treat them, you can nurture that customer. But if someone clicks today, it's like, okay, this is a time sensitive thing. Our flows should be triggered quicker. They're probably shopping around if they want to make a decision today. We've only with a certain amount of opportunity before they go to a competitor.
Right.
There's a few different ways of looking at it, and obviously it depends on industry, but you can go more aggressively after them quicker in terms of, say, timelines for abandoned cart. You might
exactly, because I guess traditionally most abandoned carts you might send the first email the first day, and then the second email second day, third email a few days later. But that's pointless. So they've said they need to.
Too late. Yeah, that's made a huge difference for pretty much any brand we've tried it out with. It's all about timeliness,
So Littledata is obviously in the business of sending through the event data about what the customers browse. So I think that's like first party data about the behavior. Obviously, you can use to customize the flows. What product they last looked at, or what product category perhaps more useful. But what are ways they can combine that sort of data with that survey data from the email pop up, and what are some ways brands might use those two things together?
Yeah, perfect. So again, it depends on the type of business, but if we're talking about a low SKU count business, so that horse supplement brand has 7 products. So for them, it makes a lot of sense to split their bottom of funnel journeys by product. If someone's got one product in the cart, and we've checked this before, and the majority of carts were single products.
Yeah.
Reverse time orders. So the resources, at the end, is justify the means there, where it's worth splitting by product. You can put in more specific product reviews, case studies. Everything can be about that individual product. On the other end, we work with this Irish hardware / gardening company, like garden center / hardware shop, and they'd have over 40,000 SKUs. So it makes absolutely no sense. So where we can leverage that is, say someone has added something, and again, Littledata will pass it across, but it's in the barbecue category, and that's the main item in their basket. You don't necessarily, when people think of personalization in Klaviyo, that they're always thinking about splitting the flows and making them more intricate, but you can do stuff inside the email, similar to the dynamic imagery we were discussing there. It's personalized too, and again, it's without the customer knowing it's personalized. It doesn't feel like they're being targeted. So if someone adds barbecue to their basket and they disappear off the site, obviously above the fold, the main content in that email is the barbecue and all, like whatever it is that's related to that. But then below the fold, you can bring in where most people would bring in maybe their own static feeds or the Klaviyo recommended AI feeds, which are terrible. They're just not great. You can pull in feeds based on what's in the basket. So if category of product equals barbecue, you could bring in complementary
barbecue equipment.
You could also do it by you could also do it by price point as well. So if the basket item is the main commitment, say it's €60, the items in the feed below it, you can make them like the maximum item that shows is 60% of the value of whatever that is. So you're not showing like another barbecue that's 500 quid. You're showing, the tongs, the grill.
This is not using Klaviyo's sort of AI feed, but rather just actually defining your own feed based on product category and pricing. Yeah,
no, it works. It works for it. Obviously, data hygiene is a big part of it. So if people are implementing their kind of product range properly and using the categories properly, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just one example. Another example we were talking about this as well is the kind of the staleness of information. So if we're asking questions like maybe the 0 part data, in that example, we could be asking a question like, what category are you interested in? And someone takes gardening. That information has a shelf life. So yeah, we would have flows running in the background that don't have any emails in them, but they just update our processes and our customers' profile properties that would change that data or essentially deem it expired after a certain amount of time or after a certain action. But also we're constantly updating that information. So for example, if there's a campaign going on and there's like a one-off Klaviyo campaign, and there are category blocks in that campaign, and one could be, gardening, hardware, tools, DIY, whatever. If someone clicks on DIY, but they originally stored as a gardening interest as a primary interest, we would store that. So when they click on that, you can add anytime they click on an email in Klaviyo, you can add a profile property or update a profile property. So you're getting real-time updates on information, and then you have these live segments you can use across the Klaviyo account, to be honest. And we'd actually use them for brands that are big enough. We'd push them across to Meta as well, so they can retarget based on category on other channels, which is really, really powerful.
Yeah, You said something really interesting chatting earlier about the fact that, in a lot of your accounts, half the flows set up are basically sort of data management rather than actually triggering flows. They're like, basically, if the customer's done this, then update this field about them. Or
yeah, so we're using leveraging, I suppose, the Klaviyo flows. Like this is not a metered part of Klaviyo's bill. If you use them for, if you're sending 1 million people through one flow a day and there's no emails or SMS or any kind of customer facing notification in it, there's no additional layer, so it's brilliant. But yeah, so for example, say we have that question in the pop-up where we've asked the customer, are you buying today? Are you buying in the next week? Or are you just browsing? Like, that question obviously has data hygiene, or has a shelf life to it. So if someone places an order, we'd remove that property because they've fulfilled whatever it is they want to fulfill, or after a certain amount of time. So if they say I'm looking to buy today, and if after 14 days I haven't purchased, we'd wipe that property as well. So a lot of different, it's probably 50-50. I must check. But for most kind of mature accounts, it's probably 50-50 in terms of, if you go to the flow section, 50 will be internal processes and updating kind of the engine we created, and 50 being actual customer notifications, emails, SMS, push notifications.
Yeah, because as you say, it's not just the explicit questions people asked of that customer that informs you what category they're in or what they're interested in. It's actually, say, the behavior, so what they clicked on in the campaigns, or what emails or what other products they browsed.
Yeah, like for a lot of our clients with high SKU counts, we'd have rolling segments that they can always use. So, for example, gardening, if they've viewed the gardening category, they'd go into the section. If they've clicked on if they viewed a product in the gardening category, if they've shown any buying intent, so add to cart, reach checkout with something in the gardening category. If they have clicked a button in an email for a gardening category, it all comes into, they're all doing these different actions that we're well able to track. Like, any brand can track these things with the same technology and with no additional expense. But we're just not leveraging them. So you'd have those rolling segments. Say they have a gardening sale, it would be a very obvious segment to throw that gardening sale at. And as I said as well, we push those lists across to Meta quite a lot, which makes for a very interesting. Meta agencies end up liking us quite a lot because obviously it's an easy kind of low hanging fruit converting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sort of golden stuff that's really hard to get. Meta, but you say things like just their product category interests and so on.
Yeah.
So we said at the beginning, we talked a bit about Black Friday, Holiday Monday kind of recommendations. So let's just go back to that topic. So what would be your kind of 3 top recommendations for brands wanting to, or top tips for stuff that helps boost flow performance in the peak period?
Yeah, cool. So first things first is the inbox gets extremely competitive. It changes every year, but considering Black Friday is at the end of the month this year, like Cyber Monday's in December. Considering where it is, we're probably talking about the second week of November onwards. It's going to start ramping up. And once one brand in an industry starts talking about it, everyone jumps the gun and freaks out. Like, better get in there. So because it gets more competitive, it gets way more saturated, and it gets harder to land in the inbox, I guess. So my first recommendation would be getting as much engagement as possible on email as a channel in the next few weeks. So I mean, starting from now. So selling the click at all costs is a phrase we're using quite a lot internally at the minute. So in day-to-day campaigns, we're thinking about it. In re-engagement campaigns, we're thinking about it. But the highest level of intent that a customer can show in an email, apart from replying to it and forwarding it, is clicking on the actual email. So we'd have customers who would provide a lot of information in campaigns, like resources. And right now we're getting them to trim that down. We're getting them to have that on the site. So it's gated, and they've clicked on a button to access that. So we want them to show really, really high engagement on email as a channel over the next few weeks. To essentially, if they're showing that they have real interest in brand XYZ right now, it means when the year comes across, they'll more likely sit very close to the top of the inbox than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I mean, I totally know that that's true. But what you're basically saying is don't sort of hold your best content for the peak period. Try and actually do it now to some extent.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to be talking about Black Friday at all, but definitely just optimizing everything you send out to be like, if you can increase your click rate, that's a perfect measure of success.
Yeah.
The other thing about that is about I very soon, as in the next week or so, recommend we stop messaging customers who haven't shown any engagement on email as a channel in the last few months, and as opposed to trying to squeeze them out for like trying to get them re-engaged on email for Black Friday, send them across to other channels. So it can be any channel. It could be SMS, it could be direct mail, which is really cool. It could be Meta again. Start warming them up on another channel where you can actually get their attention, as opposed to giving the inbox a reason to put you in promotions or spam when it comes closer to that period. So that's definitely step 2, is like recognize that you have probably 30-40% of your list for most customers that aren't going to interact with an email in the next 3 months because they haven't in the last 6 months. So yeah, try to get them engaged in another channel. And if they engage in another channel and they come back to the site, there's a good chance that they'll come back to email as a channel as well. So, but I would also start that now while the cost of ads on Meta and Google is lower, as opposed to doing that a week before Black Friday and it being crazy expensive. Another point with that of pushing across to Meta is people who haven't purchased since Black Friday season last year. So those type of customers, like people who come in and look for a deal, look for a steal, and that's all they're interested in, warm them back up. So it mightn't be on email as a channel, it might be, but definitely think of them separately. So yeah, sell the click at all costs is the first thing. Over the next few weeks, really important. Start splitting your audiences, especially the ones that aren't engaged on email. Start trying to target them on other channels to essentially get your brand into their attention span before it gets too competitive. The third one, which is an interesting one, and everyone kind of does it, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement here industry-wise, is treating your VIPs like VIPs, but not just doing it, but actually letting them know you're going to do it as well. So, for example, say you have a really good offer for your VIPs, a separate offer for Black Friday. You're actually going to treat them really well. If you start telling them about that the week of Black Friday, they're not going to see it, or chances are they're not going to see it as much. Whereas if you give them,
and also they might have already committed to a deal somewhere else. But
exactly. Yeah. So get ahead of that, and like there's no harm in over communicating with them. Essentially, you can just literally be like, "You're special to us, and we want you to feel special this Black Friday. Here's the plan, and here's the date it's going to launch." So you can give them a calendar of events. You can give them some sort of sneak peek, make them get excited about it, but also let them know before it gets too noisy in their inbox. Let them know that they are getting a special offer and they should tune in for it. Because then, as opposed to you getting drowned out in their inbox and them not seeing you, they'll be actively looking for you in their inbox. It makes a big difference. Definition of VIP is different for every brand, but you can kind of decide that yourselves. But if you use that strategy, it'll make a big difference into how much revenue you can squeeze from them at that time.
Super useful. Well, look, thank you very much for joining me today. That's all we've got time for, but it's been very helpful, and I hope other people please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Be nice seeing you all. We'll see you again next week, and good luck coming up with all your clients and their Black Friday preparations. As you know, it's a pressured time of year for a lot of our clients. People can feel like it's really make or break, but I guess the good news is that this whole holiday season thing's been around for a few years now. So I think people are beginning to, there's a good feeling that, hey, it's not actually make or break. It's just one of those times of year we need to treat differently.
Yeah, it's true, 100%.